Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. So today I'm going to be replacing the motor mounts on my 100 series Toyota Land Cruiser. I apologize, it's been a while since I made a video. A lot has changed in life, so perhaps maybe I could make another video on that. But that's a story for another day. The motor mounts on my truck are very worn out. So basically my symptoms are when I'm idling, there's just vibration coming through the whole vehicle. Basically, you can feel it shaking, and then kind of when you accelerate and put torque on the engine, it seems to kind of like force the mount down and stops it. So I'm pretty confident it's the motor mounts. I think it's pretty normal about this age that they start to wear out. So I got some new Toyota mounts. Shouldn't be too bad of a job. I already went ahead and jacked up the truck and took the dust covers off. Figured you've seen me do that a million times before. So first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the fan shroud just to give some room for the engine to come up, and then work on getting the mounts out and getting these new ones in. And the isolators for this AC line are completely broke on mine, so this AC line is just held in place with zip ties, which I need to try and find new isolators here at some point. I always forget about it, of course, until I go to touch it again, but I've actually removed this shroud quite a few times. I'm gonna take the whole expansion tank out. Not sure it matters, but it's easy enough to come out. All right, so now the fan shroud is loose. So I can move about as high as this coolant hose. All right, now this all has quite a bit of room to move. Obviously, we're gonna have to watch it as we come up with the engine. All right, so there's two 17 millimeters that go up into the transmission mount. So I'm just gonna break these free. I'm just going to leave these on the very end as I start to, well, it's probably fine to take them out. It's pretty long studs there, so it's not going to fall out. And then I'll spray the bolts that go to the transmission with penetrant. I'll wait to take these out until I'm ready to actually replace the mount. Alright, I'll show you what I'm going to do next on the passenger side, since there's a lot more room over here. But here's your engine mount here. There's a 17 millimeter on top, a 14 here. I haven't checked the other side yet, but I think that might be a 14. That one has a captive nut on the back side of it, so you won't have to hold the other side of it. So I'm going to remove these the two smaller ones first. The other one I'm going to crack loose, but I'll just leave it in place until I'm ready to actually replace the mount. I'm probably not going to film removing these, since I don't think there's anywhere I can really put the camera and work at the same time. But yeah. So here's where I have the jack in the block position on the bell housing. I found that I've had to put it on the corner, like on the side that I'm doing at that time, in order to get the engine up high enough. So kind of twisting the engine. And you just keep jacking slowly, making sure you watch everything until you give yourself enough space to get the mount out. The other side with the steering shaft was a little bit of a puzzle to get it out. And you always have to jack the car up more than you, or jack the engine up more than you expect when you're doing these. But overall, not too bad. And just be careful when you're putting it back down to make sure everything's lining up. I tightened the top nut down pretty far on the other side when I've set the mount down, just to make sure it was lined up pretty good. Here's the position orientation of how the mount comes out. Just as a comparison, mine aren't completely terrible, but obviously you can see the new one's a lot thicker, which also makes it harder to get the new one in, because you have to jack the engine up more. Actually, the passenger side kind of has less room to work because this exhaust manifold is starting to hit the firewall when I was just able to get the old one out. So getting the new one in is going to be quite challenging. There is this button head that you have to align with the bracket coming from the engine. So I found the best way to do that is just make sure you're in the right spot is to use an inspection mirror, which I have no idea if it's showing up on the camera or not, but you can kind of see that, yeah, you can see that it's lined up. All right, so here's the new transmission mount, and some people claim they can do this without removing the cross member. I don't know how they do that because I jacked the front up to the point where the exhaust manifolds were on the firewall, and I put another jack on the transfer case here, and I had the transfer case sitting on the bottom of the body, and I still couldn't get it out. So I don't really understand how people claim they can do that. Anyways, I just went ahead and loosened the cross member on both sides. That dropped it down like another 1/2 inch. I did have to take this one completely out for a second. I just like held the cross member with one hand, took the last bolt out here, dropped it down enough to swap out the mounts. The P here faces towards the rear. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and torque everything. So these cross member bolts are 50 Newton meters. And these bottom bolts on the transmission mount are 74 Newton meters. And the 4 bolts that mount the transmission mount to the transmission/transfer case, I couldn't find the spec for those, so those are just gonna get good and tight. And for torque specs here, the 2 smaller ones were 30 Newton meters. The big one wasn't specified in the manual. I'm not gonna be able to fit my torque wrench in there anyways, so I'm just gonna do good and tight for all of them. So another job done on the Land Cruiser. I just started it up and it is so much smoother. It's one of those jobs I probably should have done a long time ago because it made a pretty significant difference as far as less vibration and noise in the cabin. I'm always pretty impressed by Toyota parts though. I can't believe these mounts are 25 years old and have 270,000 miles on them, and they're just starting to separate. Definitely time to do them. But I'm also impressed, and that's why I always buy OEM Toyota parts, because if they last this long, I'll gladly spend the little bit of extra money on them. So I hope you guys like this video. I apologize. It's the first one I've made in a while, so perhaps my video quality isn't the best, but it's something I'll work on going forward. Do have some more stuff I need to be doing to this and some other vehicles. So see you guys next time. Bye.